It's my privilege today to introduce Donna Bath. She is the former chair of the Northeast Nevada Regional Development Authority. She also is the Community and Government Affairs Director of Silver Lion Farms. She also manages special events. Donna has a long service of community service in her community. She is very involved in government affairs and has worked for Eureka County for many years. Please help me welcome Donna Bath.
Yay.
Good morning. Thank you, George. Thank you for allowing me to step in for Sheldon today. It's a privilege for me to do this, and this program is something that's very near and dear to my heart. We need more businesses in Nevada, and so this will be great. Today, our panel discussion is how to navigate entrepreneurial roadblocks. And we have three wonderful businesses from Nevada who have really done a great job in starting up and progressing on. And they would like to share some of their experiences with you. And I will shut off my camera. And if our three panelists would join us, we have Thaysha Groves from Buckaroo Boutique, Joe and Lauren Luby from Two Bitch Spirits Ltd, and Kevin Lindseth with Pure Ground Ingredients. If you would all turn your cameras on and your microphones. We have a set of questions, and what I would like to do is ask the question and have each one of you take a turn in responding as it relates to your personal business experience. Let's see, do we have them on there? I can't see them.
This is Joe. Donna, I'm on.
Hey, Joe, thank you. How about, do we have Thea?
Thaysha. Yep, Thaysha Groves, I'm on.
Thaysha. And Kevin, are you on?
I am, thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much for joining us. The first question I'd like, well, let me do some introductions first. That's not very nice of me to do that. Let's start with Thaysha Groves. Thaysha is married to her wonderful husband, and they live on a ranch in northeastern Nevada with their two amazing boys. She is also the owner of Buckaroo Boutique. Thaysha started Buckaroo Boutique in 2007 as a way to get really cute purses for her and her family. She then started to get in cute bags and jewelry for her friends as gifts, and they couldn't get enough of her products. With much encouragement, she decided to take the next step and started home parties. From that, she moved to a storefront in Elko, which is located next to the famous Star Basque restaurant. Thaysha loves to help ladies feel great, and we sincerely appreciate her being on our panel today. I'd also next like to introduce Joe and Lauren Luby. I don't know if Lauren is with you, Joe.
She's on dog duty.
Oh, well, that's good. With Two Bitch Spirits Ltd. Two Bitch Spirits is the creation of a husband and wife team, Joe and Lauren Luby, who are lifelong lovers of dogs and whiskey. They love getting family and friends together for great times at their home bar. Creating their own brand of spirits was just a natural extension of that cheer and friendship into a larger audience. The company is named for Miss Scarlet and Sage, two Doberman mixed sister pups the couple adopted from a rescue shelter. Joe recently retired after 20 years in the financial planning business and wanted to do something fun. The couple spends all of their free time in northeastern Nevada. They love to hunt and fish, have friends in Eureka, and I've always wanted to retire there. The company in Eureka has long-term plan to build a barrel warehouse where they will age whiskey and have it open to the public so they can come in and see the barrels, try samples, and learn about America's native spirit burden. We certainly appreciate you joining us today, Kevin, or Joe, sorry.
Thanks.
I would next like to introduce introduce to you Kevin Lindseth with Pure Ground Ingredients. Pure Ground Ingredients was founded by the vision of a world where growers, manufacturers, and consumers all came together in the name of better ingredients, sustainable practices, and a happier, healthier planet. After a family health scare, founder Kevin Lindseth and his family studied and began practicing Chinese medicine. As a way to share their story of healing through herbs, the family founded an organic tea business. Kevin traveled the globe and developed relationships with growers. This paved a lifelong appreciation for the integrity of organic ingredients. As the market for organics began to grow, Kevin began importing and processing ingredients for other manufacturers. Today, PGI brings a range of top quality, fair trade, certified organic ingredients from all over the globe to consumers in North America and Europe. They have grown from 2 to more than 60 employees in 2018, moved to a state-of-the-art facility, doubling their size and their production capacity. We really appreciate you joining us as well, Kevin.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So the first question I will pose to the panel, and whoever wants to jump in first, just feel free. What are the biggest or unexpected challenges you faced when starting up your business? More importantly, how did you engage and overcome that challenge or challenges? Kevin, do you want to jump in?
Sure. Well, in the beginning with, let's see. Gosh, there's so many challenges. So, I got to think of which business. Like right now, we had a fire at our facility. So it shut our production down for the last 75 days.
Oh my gosh,
So,
sorry.
We had been managing our money very tightly. We had been doing really well with our sales. So we kind of have been, talk about adaptability. So, I mean, it's a huge, the building didn't burn down, so the business didn't get completely ruined. So, but suddenly I have a whole staff, with their families and such, and yet we can't produce anything. We were producing about 400,000 pounds of finished organic spices, medicinal herbs, botanicals, things like that per month. So it suddenly came to a grinding halt. So, adaptability is humongous. Planning is really important. I have insurance. That insurance basically is making my life, difficult from the circumstances, but for sure can survive and get a recovery. We had to come together as a team to really go through it. There's this damage from water. It ruined the offices. Half the offices had to be torn down, so we're all packed into the thing. So, just you have to be prepared for, you're working every day for the best. You have your ideas, your plans, everything, and then something happens, and you do have to have a certain perseverance of attitude. You do kind of have to be able to see beyond the moment, and you have to be able to communicate with that with your team, have your relationships of how you're going to manage that. So I don't know, that's pretty broad, but I would say all those things are really critical.
We appreciate you sharing that. I'm very sorry you've had to go through that, but if it had to happen, I think that Mother Nature picked the right person. I think you're up for the challenge. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Joe, how about you? Do you want to jump in?
Sure, yeah. Early on, one of the biggest challenges that we didn't foresee was in sourcing supplies and raw materials for our business. And that's, having not been in the business before, we didn't know what it was going to be like. We didn't know what we didn't know. And we ran into a lot of hurdles just trying to get basic stuff. Like, for example, obviously we're in the spirits business, so we need glass, we need bottles, we need toppers, we need labels. And we would get a hold of a different supplier every day, constantly. It seemed like we were talking to a new supplier, and they'd say, oh, well, we can sell you glass, but it has to be in a full, 40-foot tractor trailer load. And we go, well, we only need a little bit. We're starting out, we're brand new. And same with labels. We have, if you've seen our bottle, you see that we've got a lot of gold foil on our label. It's a very sort of unique and difficult label to manufacture. And so we would talk to label company after label company and find out, well, we can't do that, that kind of processing. We don't have it in-house. We'd have to ship it out. So we ended up getting labels from all over the place over the life of our company. They've come from Canada, and now we've got a great supplier in Ohio. But just little things like that ended up being challenges and hurdles that we didn't know were going to be challenges and hurdles until we really got into it and found out, and sort of hit us in the face.
Well, and certainly that's probably been manifested through the circumstances that we're dealing with right now with COVID and the shortage. So thank you for sharing that. Thaysha, would you share with us some of your challenges?
Yes. I think, just understanding and knowing your knowledge about everything that you are going to come across, like, permitting and financial for not just for, like, for me, I'm in retail. So sometimes you just think about the cost of your goods, but you don't think about shipping and all your supplies, and just researching really what you want to do. And I know you're not going to know every little thing that might come up in your business, but being able to have maybe some mentors or people that you can reach out to. Networking is super important. Yeah, it's really hard when you're first starting up to know everything that you need to know, but just having flexibility and being able to adapt in your environment is huge.
Thank you all for sharing with that question. And again, for those listening, this rural panel, if you will, this program is a wonderful, wonderful lifeline, and please use all of the resources that are being provided to you today. So our second question for the panel is, if there was one thing that you could adopt, remove, modify in a small business world that would help you ensure your business's success, what would that be? These can be internal or external factors. You can think about software, workforce, reliability, government involvement, whatever. And Thea, how about we start with you first?
Okay, I think just software. It's always changing, and there's so much of it out there. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a boutique organization that has taught me a lot, like I said, back to networking and all that, but just software and understanding it, and then also just knowing, unfortunately, we all have taxes and all that we have to pay, and if there was just a little bit of education in that aspect, because it's pretty hard to come from not really knowing all that when you're starting up a business, and I have to know all that right away just to be able to proceed with your business.
Thank you for sharing that. Joe, how about you next?
Yeah, I would say government regulation would be a big one for us. If we could get rid of some of that or have some workarounds, that would be great. And it may be a little bit unique to our business, but I know a ton of other businesses have to deal with it. But I'll give you a very quick real life example. In the spirits business, by law, you have 3 tiers. You have the supplier or the manufacturer, then you have the wholesaler, and then you have the retailer that sells it to the individual, whether it's a liquor store or a bar, or restaurant, or whatever. And you have to go through that 3-tier system such that a supplier cannot sell directly to a retail liquor store. They have to go through a wholesaler, and that's the same in every state. There are a few states that are where it's controlled by the state government itself, but you have to have a wholesaler in every state. And unfortunately, in this business, we get calls and emails almost weekly from liquor stores or restaurants in other parts of the country that would like to carry our products. And we have to tell them, we're sorry, but we have to get a wholesaler in your state that can, supply you with it. We can sell it to the wholesaler, they can sell it to you. And it is incredibly difficult to get a wholesaler in another state because they have a monopoly. They don't have to take a new brand if they don't want to, if they're not sure if you're really going to commit to that state or spend a lot of money on marketing in their state and help them make sales. It's easier for them to say, no, we're good. We already carry Jack Daniels or Jim Beam or whoever. And so, you're on your own, good luck. And at that point, we are done. We cannot make the sale to that customer who is asking to buy our products because we're limited and restricted by that government regulation. So for us, if there was some type of a solution or a workaround, even still within that 3-tier system, for us to be able to accommodate those customers that want to buy our product, that would be a huge benefit. We are expanding. We're in 5 different states now. We're adding more, but it is a much slower process than we would like.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Kevin, how about you?
Well, I don't know if there's anything that I would, want to remove, but I would just say, running a business, you have to know so much. There's the financial world and taxes and things like that. There's the knowledge about your product and the market. There's people resources and, and building teams. So it's very challenging to really have that depth of understanding in a person. So you have to have resources, whether it's, your family or like the gentleman, the young gentleman before was talking about his father, so just assume you're not going to be an expert in all of what you need to know. Like for me, I'm kind of a big picture person, kind of have the creative ideas. So I was taught kind of early on, preparation plus opportunity equals success. So sometimes opportunities come, but you might not have the financial resources or you might not know what you need to do. So you have to educate yourself and go out and get those things. So I think, resources and building a network that really supports your idea and vetting those ideas is really, really helpful. And going big isn't necessarily the thing that you want to do. It's a step-by-step process. Like I started with my credit card. I didn't have funding. You don't have to go for the $10 million or the $1 million. It's just, how can I cover and make a sale today and make, one day at a time, 1 month at a time, that kind of thing. So it's just kind of general. I'm kind of generalizing a bit, but those things have served me well to think in that way.
Thank you very much for that. The next question we have for our panel is, do you believe that rural entrepreneurship holds unique challenges compared to businesses and startups that take place in the urban areas? And if so, can you cite a few? And Kevin, how about we start with you again? We'll go backwards.
Okay. Well, people resources are definitely, I'm in Minden instead of Reno, and even that's still to me local. People don't want to drive from Reno. Even people don't want to come from Carson City sometimes. Now, I kind of grew up in an urban area, so you're used to traveling a bit more, but people resources are challenging these days. Everybody wants to be heard, so the whole entire framework of what has been is changing because the culture is changing. So I feel like that's a very big challenge. And, I mean, people want to be happy in what they do. So it isn't always just about the money, but it's, these days it's very complex, and what used to work doesn't necessarily work anymore. And what was the norm is definitely not the norm anymore. So I find, we have a hard time getting enough people in the right positions with the right skills.
Thank you. Joe, how about you next?
Yeah, so we operate in both rural and urban markets, and there's definitely a difference. If you're going to be operating in a rural market in Nevada, and that's going to be your your core business location, then you've got a couple of things that come to mind for me anyway. One is proximity to customers. In other words, what is the sheer number of potential customers in your geographical area that you can reach out and touch, and how many of those are really potential? I mean, you might have 2,000 people living near you, but how many of those are really candidates for your product or service? So you're going to have a diminished list or a group of potential customers. So you need to know in advance, is that enough to support my business, or do I need to figure out how to expand my reach into those other urban areas and population centers? And of course, these days that pretty much means the internet, if you're going to expand beyond your local area. So that's a big issue if you're going to be working in a rural area, depending on what your product or service is. The other thing that really affects us that we found in terms of rural versus urban is our shipping costs. These are the two things that came to mind as soon as you asked the question, Donna. One is customers, and then shipping costs. For example, we ship probably 100 or 200 gift baskets all over that we donate to charities and charitable banquets and stuff like that. If I'm shipping from Henderson, which is where I'm sitting right now as we speak, those go out 2-day FedEx ground at about $18 package, with using the size and the weight and all that we send. When we ship from Eureka, it starts at $22 for the same shipment. That doesn't sound like much on a one shipment, but that's, you know, a 20% plus increase in shipping costs, and that's our outgoing stuff. Then we do a lot of freight shipping as well. We both ship outward freight, you know, 2,000 pounds of product or whatever, and we also ship incoming freight, again, thousands of pounds, whether it be glass bottles or whatever. And I give you a real life example. We've had, I've had stuff that we had shipped, or we were going to ship to Eureka, I should say. And to get it to the Elko depot, this was a FedEx shipment. To get it to the Elko depot, it was $200 from wherever it was coming from, out of state. To get it to Eureka, it was over $600. So a triple in cost just to get, you know, a shipment from Elko down to Eureka when it came from way out of state, somewhere across the country. And so you got to be creative in how you're going to solve some of those problems. You're going to have some cost issues, or you could have some. So what we've done, for example, in scenarios like that, if it worked out with our schedule, we have it held at the depot in Elko, and I just arrange a trip where I go up there and pick it up from the depot if it's something that I can fit in the truck and all that. But those are two things that immediately came to mind: is proximity to customers, and at least for us, shipping costs have been an issue.
And I have to agree with that. We have a retail business and we see the same thing. Thaysha, would you like to share with us?
Yes, I agree. I think obviously I'm retail. I am online, and I do ship nationally and internationally quite often, and shipping costs from where I am in Elko, you know, it makes a difference if I was in a larger area. Also customers, in the area that I'm at, you know, I get a lot of customers that will travel to come to my store. But I also want to offer that same experience and that same product to people who can't come to my store in Elko. So just being on social media, the internet, it's kind of like other, I always like to say, because of my website store and social media, I have multiple stores, because it is like running multiple stores when you're doing that. So just, you don't have the resources when you're in a smaller area. So you kind of have to find resources and then put yourself out there like you are in larger areas to get more customers, if that makes sense.
We can all appreciate that. Thank you very much. The next question we have is, as we all know, in 2020 with COVID, small businesses had to learn how to be flexible and adapt to different business and market environments. How important is this quality of adaptation for entrepreneurs? And more importantly, in what ways did you adapt in order to meet this unforeseen challenge? And we'll start with you again, Thaysha.
Sorry, my name is very unique, so it's hard to pronounce. So for me, I think one big piece of advice I can offer anyone, whether you're a small business like me, I'm really small, or large, is the ability to adapt and to know kind of what the world's doing out there as far as marketing and selling, and just always being able to change what you're doing. Even if you liked how you were doing things, sometimes it might not work in 6 months or a year. And for me, I've had an online website since 2014 that I, pretty much grew, and it was busy. I would say I'm about 45% as busy online and then about 55% in my store. But when 2020 hit, I was glad that I had my website and that I had been growing customers internationally and throughout the nation, plus social media. And I learned to adapt, like doing different programs on social media to have sales on social media, and basically giving people that experience like we were in my store, but we couldn't be in my store, and just always changing. So it's kind of exhausting, but just being able to adapt and be open to change and new ideas and growing. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm terrible with your name. I just can't get it off my tongue. Joe, would you share with us, please?
Sure. Yeah, it was a very challenging environment last year for the spirits business. As you can imagine, people have asked, about it. And I kind of half joke, but it's not really a joke. I tell them, well, it's awful hard to do business when the government shuts down all your customers. When the bars and restaurants and liquor stores are closed, it's really hard to sell bourbon. But one of the things that we did, you had asked kind of what, something we did specific to sort of overcome. And one of the things we were able to do, luckily for us, is that because we are sold in different states, we're not limited just to Nevada. For example, Wyoming is one of our states that we sell in, and Wyoming had much less of an impact from COVID last year than Nevada did. And there were a lot less closures as a result of that. And so there was a time last year where we were able to just pack up and go, and we left and we spent 2 or 3 weeks in Wyoming doing sales calls all over the state up there that we couldn't do here in our home state of Nevada. So for us, we were able to actually continue, our sales process or our sales work. We just had to do it in a different location, and and then come back. And when Nevada opened up more and more, we were able to get back into our old groove here. But we just literally picked up and went somewhere else that we were able to do our sales. So that was how we kind of overcame part of it last year.
Thank you. Kevin, how about you, please?
Yeah, I think, adaptability these days is essentially, it's a requirement. These are really turbulent, complex times. My business is a little bit different because I'm not retail, I'm a manufacturer. So for me, I'm importing from countries all over the world. So supply chain, has been very crazy. A container that normally would cost us between $1,500 and $2,500 a container now is being quoted as $11,000 to $15,000 a container. So, there's just, the environment really right now is just unpredictable. So, when the COVID started, for example, we kind of locked down and tightened up, just to see what was going to happen. Now I'm in the health category because I'm doing organic botanicals, and everybody wanted, elderberries and these kind of things for their health. So we had a big surge. So, I was very prompt. So I organized with my bank. I was fortunate enough to get some PPP. I put that immediately aside just for only payroll. And then I basically put all the rest of the money that I would have normally had to pay for payroll, and I bought supplies. So I kind of was very proactive, and And in this case, it kind of worked out. Some, you don't actually know which way things are going to go sometimes, but it made it so that I had a lot of supply when a lot of people didn't have a lot of supply just from that moment. So adaptability is really critical. In this current situation, I had to kind of retool my whole staff. We had $1 million worth of inventory that was in jeopardy of being lost in my warehouse. And we took it all out. We went through every bag. It got wet, so we had to like dry it, treat it, retreat it, all these kind of things. I mean, it just takes an immense amount of that adaptability. Even you don't have something like that happen. So I think it's out of control. So just try to, I don't know, sometimes in the ideal world, we get so excited, but there's this other practical part of just being realistic, because it's really unpredictable. And if you're too far out over the edge, it's really hard to bring yourself back under these circumstances. So I think, not being overly cautious necessarily in the sense of feeling paralyzed or, with fear, but, realistically, it's a difficult time in the world to operate. There's a lot of opportunities, but there's also a lot of risks. So just have to kind of take, I'm a step-by-step kind of guy, like let's just go step by step. So yes, that's what I would say initially.
Thank you. And truly, you all have stepped up to bat in these challenging times. I do want to diverse just a minute. Duke Nishimura has a question for the panel. It says, I have a client looking for a company that can become a U.S. supplier of canned spirits. Are any of your companies have the capability to provide such canning? And Duke, if you look on the chat box, there are their contact informations for all of our panelists today. And I think you can reach out if you have that capability, any of you.
Yeah,
So,
since it's in the spirits business, that's probably our bailiwick. If he wants to reach out to me and let me know a little more, I might be able to at least direct him if it's not something we can help with.
Okay, and thank you. And Duke, that is Joe at 2bitchspirits.com. Okay, our next question is, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 50% of small businesses fail by year 5, and unfortunately 70 by year 10. From your experiences, what do you think are the leading factors for this? Joe, you're up. You want to go first?
Sure. Well, there's probably a whole lot of factors to that. A couple that come to mind right away. One is some, a lot of entrepreneurs have a good idea and maybe they're very good at something and they want to do it as a business, but they're not necessarily geared for being in business. So in other words, give you an example. Let's say, somebody's a very, very good cook and they friends and family love their cooking and they're always raving about it, love to come over and they like to cook. That doesn't necessarily translate into the ability to run a restaurant, because there's a whole lot of other parts, moving pieces that go into that, dealing with the health codes, running a commercial kitchen, which is obviously different than running a home kitchen and things like that. So that's for me, I think I've seen that happen many times. And so I think that's one issue with why some businesses go out, is that somebody thinks they're really good at something or doing something or building something or whatever. And they probably are great at it, but it doesn't necessarily translate into the business mindset and ability needed to be successful. The other thing I've seen a lot is that people don't understand sometimes how important it is to get out there and make sales. Sales solves everything. Sales, essentially, if you have a problem in your business, sales will solve it, and almost every time. And we've had experience. In fact, even our business, we worked with a guy early on, and we were brought in to mentor him a little bit. And you get somebody that has a product that they think will just sell itself. Man, I just have to hold this up and show it to people and they will buy it like crazy. It'll fly off the shelves. I don't have to do anything and I'll be an overnight success. And it does not work that way. You have got to pound the pavement and sell your product, sell yourself, sell your company. And if you do that, you can overcome, I don't make up a percentage, but you can overcome a lot of the issues and challenges that entrepreneurs run into on a day-to-day basis in running their business. Sales really is the solution to almost all those problems, because sales allow you to go hire help in those areas that you are not proficient in, or you can go to the bank and get more money if you've got good sales. This is a Shark Tank type event. Most of the people on here has probably seen that show. Think about how many times the sharks on that show ask the entrepreneur standing on the carpet, do you have a purchase order? Or how many purchase orders do you have? And so forth, because sales is key. And so again, I guess the bottom line to that part of my comment is I see a lot of entrepreneurs that think just because they have the better mousetrap or the better widget, or they're really good at something, that'll automatically result in tremendous sales success. And that's definitely not always the case. Even if you have a good product, you got to work hard at getting it sold.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thaysha, would you like to?
Yes, I have to agree a lot with that. And also, like for me, I have clothing that you might be able to find other places, but for some reason my customers choose to shop with me, not necessarily because of the product. I mean, it's good, and I really work hard in making sure I have good product, but it's putting myself out there. I feel like when your customers get to know you personally and what you stand for, and just being a big part of your business, people feel more comfortable shopping with you and being a part of your business with you and helping you grow and watching you grow. Another thing is, like I've said before, is adaptability. Things change. And before 2020, there was a lot of changes with social media and all that. And now with 2020, everything's going in a different direction. And I think just the ability to be able to adapt, if something that you've been doing for a long time doesn't seem to be working, just being able to know that that's okay, it's a good idea, but you need to change it up or try something different, and not to put all your eggs in one basket, as far as advertising and all that. Doing it all and having good help, good employees, good mentors. I mean, it's a lot, I know, but I think if you can get a backing like that, it helps. And one big thing I see too is just going too big too fast. So that's another issue that I see. And it's easy to do that because you want to be bigger, and if you start to get a lot of customers and you're starting to grow, you think, oh, well, I need a bigger facility, I need more of this and more of that. But if you can't financially support it, then you're borrowing, and then you're becoming into debt, and then it becomes a greater issue.
Thank you very much. Kevin, how about you?
Well, I just feel like I'm echoing what Joe and Thaysha said. And like, I have a friend who loved, he bought a smoker, and he wanted, he was doing meats and BBQ and things like that. And then he made this gigantic jump to a restaurant across from Heavenly, and it cost him so much to move in. It was like, he's going to take years just to make all the investment that he put in. And then he hit COVID, of course. So, that adds a couple more years. And so I think having your goals, you have your ideas, and we all think we have like great ideas, and sometimes we do, but then, writing out your goals, and, instead of just from the ideas into just even the act of writing, actually, it brings a lot of clarity. And what I used to do with my family was we would do this action planning sessions where we'd throw out all the ideas we have, development and expand and build and startup and whatever. And then we would make an action plan for the whole year and break it down by the departments, finance department, production department, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. And then we would put it out over time. We would put it out with numbers. And, like, I would we had an herbal tea business, and I'd have all this money. Okay, we're going to put all this money into advertising. And then by the end of the first quarter, spent all that money. And like Joe said, we didn't have the sales. So we had to scrap it. But we at least knew where we were, instead of sometimes you go out and you get so enthusiastic and you go, oh, we're going to, like when I was younger, I got my first credit card. And I was like, well, I'm going to make more money next year. And I just spent money, and it took me 5 years to pay that credit card off because I made more money, but there's interest. And in those days it was 21%, 30% interest. And it was I could not catch up. So I don't know, planning and having goals and actually writing those out and stuff like that. I think we're too, we get caught up with our ideas maybe and a little bit impulsive. And with the chaos of these days, I think a lot of businesses, that's hard to survive if you don't do that extra steps. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. And I do have to throw in a personal note and tell you, Thaysha, we've been in your store. My granddaughters love your store when we come to Elko, so they're big fans of yours. Joe, we certainly have your product in our home, and Kevin, I hope to get your product into our home via your website. We don't get to Minden very often, but love to try your product. So I have one more question for the panel before we close. And if there's one piece of advice that you would like to leave rural entrepreneurs with as they prepare to launch their new businesses in rural Nevada, what would that be? And Kevin, we can start with you.
Well, I think, you should pick something that you really connect with or feel is a natural thing that you love. Because then you're gonna, it's a big part of your life, and you gotta like what you do, and it's gonna be hard sometimes, and sometimes it's gonna be fun. So, writing those goals and about your life, what do you want, not just the work, and just, I think you gotta kind of have some passion about what you're doing. Some people like numbers, some people like organizing, some people like the social aspect. So you got to know yourself too. So I just think, look at that, and that will help you. If I was going to do numbers, I wouldn't do very well. I've had to learn them, of course, but it's not my passion. So
Thank you for sharing that. Thaysha, let's go to you next.
I think, there's a lot of things I could say, but I think one thing that is important when you have a business, start a business, is your tribe, like I like to say, that you have behind you. Just emotional, mental support, people that you can look to and bounce ideas off of for help, physically, mentally. I just think networking, just having a good support system, because like Kevin said, you do something that you love and you always love it, but sometimes you question, why am I doing this or whatever. So loving it and having that support behind you, because it is hard sometimes. And sometimes you lose, I don't say you lose desire, but you kind of lose motivation and all that. So just having a good support system, I think, is huge.
Thank you. Joe.
I would echo what Kevin said about you're going to have times that are very, very hard, and you're going to have times that are very, very fun. It's going to be a seesaw going both ways. And so just know that going into it. You're going to have days that you just want to give up and say, I don't know why I bothered to do this, and I wish I hadn't, and I'm going to get out. And you're going to have other days that you can't believe that you're getting paid to do what you're doing. And, thank goodness you don't have a regular job. You're working for yourself, even though working for yourself means you work about 80 hours, to avoid a 40-hour job, but it's still a lot of fun. Ultimately you'll enjoy it. And I guess the last thing I would harp on is kind of going back to my answer to the last question is sales will solve almost any problem you have. And so get good at sales, learn, take classes, read books, whatever you need to do to learn how to sell your product. And ultimately that will lead you to success. You can overcome everything else as long as you can make the sale.
Thank you. And again, I want to thank the three of you for taking time out of your day to be such good mentors to these young entrepreneurs and adult entrepreneurs and future business people of Nevada. Maggie, I will turn that back to you with a few minutes to spare. Thank you again.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you very much, Donna. We appreciate you stepping in for Sheldon.